This is Barrels and Barrels, a bourbon and baseball podcast, with your hosts, Brandon Spinner and Michael Burns.
And welcome into another episode of Barrels and Barrels, a bourbon and baseball podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Spinner, and on my left, your right, if you're watching on YouTube, is my buddy Michael Burns. Mikey Burns, how you doing today, my friend?
Doing pretty good. I'm excited. I really like what we're reviewing today. It's one of my favorites.
The entire distillate or these bottles in general?
A little both. A little both.
Yeah.
Can't go wrong. We can't go wrong with the distillate, and then these bottles in general are good.
Yeah. And I'm sure you already know what it is because you probably clicked on the title in our podcast. But we're talking about Maker's Mark, the latest release in 2023, the BEP, Barrel Entry Proof is what that stands for. But also we're going to do a second review because we're going to kind of compare it. We're going with Maker's Mark BRT-01. Before we dive into the bourbon portion of the podcast, I want to welcome in those of you who may be new to our podcast. Thank you for joining. Hopefully you enjoy what you listen to. And if you do, please hit the rating and reviewing portion of this on Spotify, Apple, whether that's also on Amazon, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or on iHeartRadio Podcasts. You can find us there. And as I mentioned, opening up, we are on YouTube. Barrels and Barrels Pod on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. We'd love for you to subscribe. We've got a lot of different shorts that we're just putting out solely exclusive to YouTube. More so about baseball. Sometimes if Bourbon News breaks, we'll put that out as well. So go check us out there. We're on Instagram, really growing there, over 1,000 followers, and on Facebook at Barrels and Barrels Pod. That's our handle on IG, Facebook, and on YouTube. On Twitter, it is Barrels and Barrels, and you can find myself or Michael on Twitter as well. I am at WXSpinner89, and Michael, you're BNB Burns, or is it Burns BNB?
On Instagram, it's BNB_Burns.
And on Twitter, it's
I think it's Burns
BNB, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And on Instagram, you can find me, whiskey_weather. I'm going to go with a bourbon review today. There's not much baseball to this. This is just solely bourbon. So we're going to be alcoholics in this episode. Just kidding.
For some reason, I was thinking that Maker's Mark is not a bourbon, it was a whiskey. But I'm reading on the bottle, it says straight bourbon whiskey. Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey.
More than 50% corn. It is meeting all the criteria. And Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. And this BRT-01 and 23 BEP, they are wood finishing series, right?
That's right. This is BEP is the fifth and final bourbon in the wood finishing series. They started in 2019. And now with 2023 being the final bourbon in the chapter.
So it's the fifth? I thought they've done more than that, right?
19, 20, 21, 22, 23. No, they did. Yes, fifth year.
Right. Okay.
I guess they're counting each year that had multiple as a different bourbon.
2021 was FAE, right? And
2021 was FAE. 2020 was SE4 by PR5.
Okay. So we've done a review previously on BRT-02. That was back in, I think, December. And we were both very big fans of that. So go check out one of those episodes. I think that was episode 12. I may be mistaken. But wow. Michael, tell us a little bit more about this Maker's Mark BEP.
Yeah, so BEP stands for, like Brandon said, Barrel Entry Proof. And this bottle is basically a celebration of Maker's Mark. Maker's Mark is one of the only major distilleries, that still has their bourbon enter the barrel at 110 proof. In 1962, distillers were permitted to raise that barrel entry proof to 125. Maker's Mark made a statement by staying there, and that's what this bottle is kind of a celebration of.
Cool. Yeah, because that's one of the criteria for bourbon is it can't go into the barrel any higher than 125, and most distillers will go to that. So I'm guessing they just proof it down to 110 before they barrel it. That would be my guess.
That would be my guess. Yeah, I don't see any notes on it, but They know that the lower initial proof gives more flavor, more smoothness, and less burn, and maybe some more color. But yeah,
More
here's
color.
here's a note: the extra water helps improve the concentration, which imparts flavors of caramel and vanilla and baking spice.
You said that so
I feel
sexually.
like
Vanilla and caramel and baking
I feel like
spice.
that's how you have
Man,
to say
talk dirty to me.
caramel. I feel like how you have to say caramel. I can't come out any other way. I hate saying caramel. It's actually caramel.
Caramel.
It's caramel. So let's pop this baby open and
Let's do it.
give it a pour.
Yeah, so mine are still sealed from Michael's shipment over to me, so bear with me on the tape. I did go back and look it up. I was wrong. It was episode 13 that we did the BRT-02 on. That was December 21st that episode dropped, so go check that out. We both rated it as an all-star, and I believe the moment that we ended that, Michael was driving all over North Alabama to try to find a BRT-2.
Yes, I was, and actually, it was pretty funny. You were about to send me a shipment, and you asked, "Hey, should I throw anything else in there for you?" And I joked and said, "Yeah, a BRT-2." And you drove.
And I ran out and grabbed one.
You drove that morning and found one for me. I was just like, "Wow, what a guy!"
And then, like the next day, didn't you find one in a store by you?
Yeah, but it cost more, of course.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've just poured my BEP or BEP.
Yeah, so this BEP, also another note, is stave details. This is American oak staves. BRT-01 is also American oak staves, and BRT-2 that we sampled in episode 13 was French oak staves. So to give
Okay,
an
so that's
even
pretty much
comp,
the difference.
yeah, the difference in BRT-1 and 2 was American oak versus French oak. But we're doing the American oak one of BRT-01 to give it a fair comp against BEP. But I don't know that BEP is anything different than Maker's Mark cask strength. Because the 46 is French oak, I believe.
So the 46 is French oak, and that's what 02 was, BRT-02.
And Maker's cask strength is Maker's at 110.
I just saw a 46 cask strength, but a red label at the Costco by me yesterday. And I've heard that those are comparable too.
Yeah.
I think I saw on Instagram. I haven't done too much research on this.
The difference in the BRTs, I know we're reviewing BEP right now, but BRT was, at least they rotated the barrels, they said, to get get a little different flavor. But
that's what BRT stood for, I think, right? Barrel rotation.
Right, exactly. But this is BEP. This is barrel entry proof. So really, this is just a celebration bottle, more celebration label. And I don't know exactly if they did anything different, but just set aside some Maker's Mark cask strength and slap the BEP on it. But we're gonna give
what's
it a review.
The proofing on this?
This is 50 alcohol percent per volume is 55.35, so it's a little over 110, almost 111.
So just over what it was barreled at, so it didn't really climb much.
I mean, minusculely.
So it's pretty much a full proof, if you
Right.
think about it, because full proof is what it goes in at and comes out at, and is bottled at.
How's that nose for you?
Very sweet. It's got a classic Maker's to me. Vanilla right off the front.
Some baking spice.
Caramel, as Michael said earlier.
It's caramel.
Very sweet.
It's caramel.
It's caramel. I thought you were just talking dirty to me. It smells delicious. I've got some chocolate to it. I think there's a little bit of chocolate on the nose.
Yeah, I get that caramel. The baking spice comes through. It doesn't. I think what makes these higher proof makers different than a Maker's is it's less. It's not syrupy. At 93 proof, I think regular Maker's is at. And I love me a good weeded bourbon.
Yeah, I'm a huge Weeder fan too.
I think what I enjoy about the staves, I think it brings the wood sugars out more. Maybe that's what I smell with the baking spice a little bit.
Yeah.
So you took a swig. What you think on the palate?
I think it's very welcoming up front. It's not harsh up front for a 110, 111 proof. I do think you feel the 110 or 111 on the back half. First, it comes out mapley and sweet honey to me up front with some vanilla to it. I think as it gets more and more in your mouth, there's a drop. The more it lingers, I do feel there's some spicy cinnamon towards the backside.
Wow.
Not bad by any means. I do think it's a little more harsh on the back end than the front end. It's very welcoming up front. I think it's a very sweet pour to me.
Yeah, definitely. I get and it's not sweet in the candy kind of way. I think it's a sweet and like a sugary coated kind of way.
So I got chocolate on the nose. I don't get that on the palate, but it's got like a sweet, like a chocolatey sweetness to it, if that makes sense. Like chocolate has a different sweetness than candy kind of sweetness. It's more of a mellow sweet to me.
Right, and I think the best word is the wood sugar.
Wood sugar, yeah, caramelized wood sugar. Yeah,
but I do get what you're talking about. It does smack you a little bit towards the back end.
But yeah, I was gonna say it's not jumping at you right away with the heat, but I do feel it towards the back end of it and on the back side of the tongue. I think this is the volume and the viscosity is great. It coats the mouth very well. Yeah, great color as well. It's got that. It's a lot more brown than yellow. I mean, my lights are not great in here, but
yeah, I like that tells when you get a little bit more of a non-light whiskey color, like you said, that yellowy.
Do you have the mash on this, right? Obviously, it's a wheated bourbon.
Yeah, 70% corn, 16% red winter wheat, and 14% barley.
And the cool thing in Makers is that's their only mash.
Yeah?
I believe so. I think everything is just a different finish or a different proof or a different way to bottle it. I think that's their big thing is that Makers, we make bourbon one way. And then we finish it in different ways, the finishing series. And that's why when you do a barrel pick with them, it's a finishing staves. Like you get to choose which finish it is, how many staves of this. Right. So that's a stave finished barrel pick. So that's what I do enjoy about these is they've all got the same backbone to it, but they've got different characteristics because of the way that they're finished and the way that they are.
Yeah, I've enjoyed these wood finishing series. I've tried every single one except for 2019. 2019
but
RC6 is the only one I have not had. I have it, and it is collecting dust unopened because I have an unopened bottle from each of the series, but I never got a double of the RC6. So one day, maybe one day.
So maybe Jerry has it. Jerry. Paging Jerry.
Yeah, all those makers.
Mr. Makers. So the more I swirl this on the nose, at least the left nostril, waffle crisp cereal. Did you ever have that growing up?
With the koala bear kind of looking dude?
No. Waffle crisp cereal. I'm going to pull it up and send you it via text message.
Was it yellow box or brown box?
It was like a yellowish brown box. They were literally waffles.
I remember a yellow one.
Yeah, it is a yellow box. Yeah, it is. They sell it on Amazon still. At least so they say. $13.46 a box. This is what it looked like.
I never ate it.
That's what I get on the nose. Waffle crisp cereal.
Get that
That's
maple
right
now.
off.
Now, if I close my eyes and you can kind of, if you listen to somebody else, if you're someone who's, it just tastes like whiskey to me. Let someone else describe some notes to you. Take a sip and close your eyes and let them describe some notes. And make sure you're taking a small sip. Don't be gulping this thing.
Right.
And that's how you'll get some notes out of here. But
we want to rate. Go ahead.
Let's rate. I enjoy chasing and collecting these things and trying them out. So I would bet Makers has something else up their sleeves with this ending.
Mm-hmm.
I think they did well with these, and they're not going to just stop and do nothing. So, interesting to see what they do next.
Yes. Very interesting to see what they do next, because you said since 2019, so that's 5 straight years of doing this finishing series. Do we want to rate this and then go to BRT-01, or are we going to rate this first? Okay, so then maybe we're not biased.
Right.
Okay, I'll go first. I normally don't go first, but I normally lead. I am going to give this an everyday player. I think it's good. Everyday player is where I'm going with on this one. I love this sweet nose. I do think that there's a little bit of a harshness on the backside that kind of bitters it towards the end. But overall, from front to back, this is a very good pour for what's the MSRP? Near $70, I think, right? That's what these all are.
$70. Yep.
$69.99. $69, nice.
Nice.
Nice. I love the waffle crisp. It brings me back to my childhood. So, yeah, the nose is fantastic. I think the nose is a slight better. If I had to rank it, I'd say the nose is better than the pour itself, but I wouldn't say the pour is bad. I'm going every day. Michael.
Yeah. Front to back, like you said, this is good. I think it does finish bitter, but as you let it go, you just start tasting sugars in your mouth as it goes. That bitterness turns into sugars. I would enjoy sharing this with friends, so I think I'm going to go everyday player.
And would you buy another bottle? That's always my question, and I would if I saw this.
Yeah, and it's a blue label compared to all the other ones that are white labels. This one's blue.
This one's gold.
Okay, gold, orange.
Yeah, gold, orange. But yeah, that was... I think there was any reasoning behind that, or just like the ultimate, the final bottle? Just let's mix it up.
No, yeah, let's mix it up. Maybe they ran out of that ink or wanted to be special for the last one.
Yeah, well, they are special. So that was BEP.
That was beep.
Beep, beep.
Now we're going to move on to 2020, 1 year prior, and it's the same stave details, but this is 109 proof BRT-01. So this one is barrel. They rotated these barrels throughout the rickhouse, and that's what makes the BRT series, the 2022 series release, different. So I mean, I don't know. I don't remember which. What did you rate BRT-2 that we did back in episode 13?
We both went all star.
Did we both go all star? All right, cool. Yeah, I got a backup of that thing, an unopened one for my series.
I've been milking my BRT-2 because I have it right here, and it says the hand rotating of 200,000 barrels a year is key to both of their DNA and their consistent whiskey. So I guess barrel rotation happens with all of them.
So that makes me wonder too if this is any different than Maker's Mark cask strength. Not cask strength because it's got staves in it. Than 46.
Yeah, well. Probably the proofing. It's not cask strength because they're probably proofing it down a little bit. That's probably the differences.
Cask strength is usually what? I thought it was usually 110. 108, 107 maybe, I think.
It's whatever it came out of the barrel at, so I can't tell you.
So we rated the beep. We said it was caramely, sugary. Have you sniffed the BRT-01 at all?
Not. No,
it's
I'm
definitely
not.
Different. This one's definitely deeper in caramel. Do you see different in color too? Oh yeah.
So I was trying to. I think it's a little darker.
Yeah.
I was trying to say earlier, is it sacrilegious that I'm drinking it out of a Weller Glencairn? They're both wheated, right?
Right. That's what makes it okay.
It's a little more earthy on the nose to me.
It's much of a deeper caramel.
Yeah. It's not as mapley.
It's not as sugary.
Mm-mm.
It's you go back and forth at all? Go back and forth. Yeah. You really, between the two.
I mean, it's more sugary on the right nostril than the left nostril. But when I look back and forth, oh yeah, it's more dense even on the nose.
Yeah. I get that caramel, but it's much of it's not light smelling. This is a deep, like, you think this would be like a syrup that you're sniffing.
Yeah, it's got more of a syrupy smell to it. I'm still pulling like an earthy tone to it. I don't know if it's not, I don't want to say dirt, but like.
I just took a sip and that's good. It's very different than beep.
Mm-hmm.
I get more of a deeper flavor of oak and it's not like a sweet caramel. It's a deep caramel. It's a heavy caramel.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a little more bitter on the back end. So what I would say, like first glance, is it's beep, just on steroids. Right? I feel like it's. Go ahead.
It doesn't have the baking spice that beep did. It's got more of a. It's just got a deeper flavor rather than a spice flavor, like a baking spice flavor. Beep is more of like a light whiskey compared to
Right.
BRT-01.
I think there's more flavor to BRT-01. I think the mouthfeel is better. I think it's got a little more bitterness. I think everything from BEP that I've tasted on the mouth is just amplified twice at a higher amplitude on the second pour of BRT-01. What do they look like bottle-wise? Darker?
They look same. No, it looks the same bottle-wise. Let me turn my light on in the middle. They're halfway through here. No, it's definitely a little bit darker.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say.
Is it the one in your left hand or your right hand?
Beep is in this hand.
Okay.
So, how's that finish for you? The BRT.
I think it's more of a bitter finish. It's not as sweet as I was anticipating. It's maybe a little more tanniny. That's probably the one thing that takes away from the pour. I think it's sweet all around, but like I said, I think it's beep amplified. I would probably, the nose is good, but I don't think it's as good to me. It's sweet, but
Does it almost taste overpowering because we're coming from beep? A similar bourbon, and now coming to the BRT. Does it taste almost overpowering in the sweetness and caramely?
I don't think it's. I think the bitterness on the back end's a little more overpowering.
I get the tannins you're talking about now as I taste it, and now talking does a difference if you just sit there.
Yeah.
So there needs to be like a bourbon tasting like saying,
Yeah.
barrels and barrels, high proof and high heat.
That's our motto. This is higher proof too. 110. What is the BRT 1?
109.4.
109.4. So beep is a little higher in proof. I feel like, but BRT 1 tastes higher. Like it hits me higher and hits me more.
Really?
Yeah, to me at least.
I think it's hard because I don't know which one. I think they're similar. They're completely different tasting to me. One is sweet spicy. What are you laughing about?
I'm sitting here going, this doesn't
It's an
smell
empty
like
glass.
anything. It was an empty Glen. Oh boy. That's what happens when you have too many Glens on a table and you're like trying to compare things. So yeah. I mean, man, I would take the nose on beep all day long compared to BRT1. Yeah.
See, I'm leaning on the BRT side more.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Man,
Definitely.
I can't get away from the waffle crisp. Like that's all I smell, and it just is like, oh, I love it. And then on BRT1, it's more earthy, and there's nothing bad. Like I think they're both great in their own way. I would probably lean BRT. Nah, I'm going beep. When it comes to like what I prefer, I'm gonna bench the BRT1. I do think it's good. I don't think it's the best of the two and really of the three that if we're going to compare them. there's too much tannic on the back end of it. It's good, but it's not something I'm going to go to every day. When we did BRT-02, that was something that I've literally had to milk this bottle because I don't want to drain it because I'm going to be sad when it's gone.
Because it had complexity.
I think that's the same way when it comes to BRT, to BEP, and the BEP. I would drain this bottle according to how I feel about it more so than BRT-01.
There you go. Yeah, I'm a little the opposite. I like the deeper caramel flavor of BRT. I'm not all-starring it like BRT-02 for the reason of the tail end of it it flattens out a little bit. I get those tannins that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I get that earthiness of it. It's where BRT-02 was complex. That thing had me go in multiple different directions. I'm gonna everyday player it, but it's in front of BEP in the lineup.
So you go BRT-02, BRT-01, then BEP.
Yes, for sure.
So for poops and giggles, I just poured BRT-02. Do you have that handily available?
Yeah. I just have to put my headphones up for a second.
So while Michael walks away, I'm just going to talk mad crap about him. He's just such a weird dude. He just continues to how's it going, Michael?
Hey, yeah.
I hope you listen to this episode because I just talked mad shit when you walked away. So I just poured BRT-02. So we're doing a trio of a comparison here. So this is why it's only a bourbon podcast, because if we did this with baseball, we would just be probably slurring through the rest of the baseball portion of the podcast. So this is only a bourbon review. Beep.
And so
BRT-01.
2 is just like the middle of these two on the nose. He's not overpowering, but he's not super spicy on like baking spice.
I think there's a lot more chocolate to the nose in BRT-02.
Yes, agreed. That was great. Great pull there.
And was 02 the low floors, the cooler floors?
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yes, I think so. But and then the major difference also is this is French oak.
Yeah.
This is not American oak. Man, I just took a swig of that BRT-02 and hot damn, it's good.
Mm-hmm. So I had some last night. Go ahead.
It is the middle of the road of BEP and BRT-01. It is great. Fantastic. I would... Cheers.
All right. Cheers. I had some last night on a den call with Joseph Campbell, our guy, Joseph Campbell, and you can find him on Instagram. And he was celebrating because the Braves swept the Mets. And he's like, what are we celebrating with, Brandon? So we shared a pour BRT-02. Yeah. It's so much more complex. I think it's more well-rounded. I'm sticking with the All-Star. I would go BRT-02, BEP, BRT-01 in that order. I do think BEP for me has more of a sweeter nose, is better. It's not as tanniny on the back end, but BRT-02 puts both of them to shame in my mind, just with the complexity, well-rounded from the nose, the chocolate. I get some darker fruits on it too. Some fig. Man.
BRT-02 is good.
And it's so much more like, I don't know if you can see it. It doesn't do it justice, but it just sticks to the glass. Inside the Glen, you do the Lost Nemo swirl. There's a shout out. Spirit Animal Society. Come join us.
So let me read the tasting notes on the front of each bottle. BEP says an expression with prominent wood sugars, bringing forth strong notes of vanilla, caramel, and sweet spice.
Well, we hit that on the nose. I don't have the bottle for BEP in front of me.
I had a cheat sheet.
You had a cheat sheet. I do get the wood sugars. That is definitely coming. I think that's more so on the nose and on the back half of BEP.
A great description.
So what's BRT-01 say?
Oh, one says deep caramelized barrel notes scented with some toastiness and warm finish.
See, that's the thing. I don't get as much. Like I think I get more
toastiness.
I get more of that in BRT-02, like a marshmallowy, like a marshmallow chocolate, almost s'mores-like.
All right, here we go. BRT-02, a dark expression filled with notes of fruit, nut, and chocolate.
So I get the chocolate for sure. I do get, like I said, the fig. I don't get as much nut.
I
And these are all $69.99.
I bet you usually enjoy those ones.
Yeah, you trying to say I enjoy nuts?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was trying to be subtle, and you just came out right away and just said it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm just gonna make a note. I'm expliciting this podcast. Are you wearing a ring? Is that what you're doing? You flashing the Cubs World Series ring? Is that what that is?
I sure am.
Subtly. Subtly. And you can only see that on YouTube. There's your exclusive look on YouTube. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of funny. So I have a ton of Glens. I went all with the Buffalo Trace Glens today, just because those were the only ones that were
George
clean.
T. Stagg, Weller, and Blanton's.
And Blanton's. So BEP is in the Blantons. Weller is in the BRT-01 is in the Weller, and the Stagg, the George T. Stagg, is the BRT-02, and that would kind of be how I would rate them normally. Is Stagg, Blanton's, and then just like regular Weller.
I thought you were about to pick up three Glens on top of each other.
That is called talent right there, and you can only see that on YouTube.
That top one almost went.
No, I had full control. Yeah, man, I'm continuously blown away by BRT-02.
Yeah, it reminded, we did Barrel Vantage, and that's what it reminds me of as well. $10 cheaper if you know. But
here's the funny part: is Michael
what?
benched Barrel Vantage.
That was the moment in my bourbon reviewing career that I realized I was being a little too harsh. At that point, I would never have a Hall of Famer, barely any All-Stars. That was the turning point in my review career.
And I guess we have to talk about it now that we're 33 minutes into the podcast. Our rating scale is based off of a baseball rating scale, which ranks from Hall of Fame. It's top of the top. That's the 1%er, right? Like, not every bourbon is going to be the best bourbon in the world, but there are a few, right? We've been close twice, and I think we were scared to do the BRT-02 as a Hall of Famer. It's close. I just think maybe it's like that 2,500 strikeout pitcher instead of 3,000, and that's what's just keeping him off the ballot. But All-Star, as you heard us rank BRT-02 back in December, go check out that video or that episode. That is episode 13. But BRT-02 is an All-Star. That is one of those guys that's on every team. You've got an All-Star, but it's the one standout player, right? That's the guy who everybody looks at and like, yep, can't stand up to him. That's the All-Star. You want bottles that are backups to that bottle. Everyday player is just like a player every day in your lineup, right, Mike?
Yes, everyday player, the guy that you are happy to share. You're taking this bottle to a bottle share. It's not something that, like an All-Star, you might keep at home. You're not going to go.
A little more selfish with an All-Star. Right?
Yeah, with everyday player, I want you to try this. Mm-hmm. And then followed by that is the bench player who has his times. Mm-hmm. He's not something that you love all the time, but he's still good. It could be like a dessert bourbon, something like that. And with the last one, Brandon,
is a designate for assignment. The difference between what I think a bench and a designate for assignment is that bench player is one that you like. You just don't like it every day. You like it to come in and pinch hit, right? You've had weeks of this one everyday pour where you've had that a couple times a week. That bench player comes in once a week, twice a week.
Unique flavor.
Right. You're looking for something different, and that's what a bench player is a pinch hitter. It's that guy who does a spot start in your rotation. It's a guy who comes in, plays maybe, they used to call it the Sunday lineup in baseball. You play your bench players on Sunday. They come and fill in. They maybe a utility player, right? You don't have the everyday aspect, but you can fill in multiple spots. Designate for assignment is when you're cut from the team. Get out of here. You're gone. And Michael, we call him the Axe Man. He's more of the designate. If I'm ever going to ask someone to like be cut, or if we ever have a business and we got to fire someone, I'm going to Michael.
Just have a seat, buddy. Have a seat. You didn't make it.
Yeah, see you, bye.
See you,
I'm going to be over here. You're so good. but we just don't. You're not
So
that-
like if you know Moneyball, if you know the movie Moneyball, Brandon here is Peter Brand, where in the trade release where I was Billy Bean, like, hey, you're cut. Here's the
Yep.
notes. See ya. And Peter Brand was more like, you were a good ball player.
Yep.
Yes.
Do I
love
get to
that
make
movie.
the fist like Jonah Hill does? Yeah. I love
Such a
it.
great movie. That's one of my favorites.
I kind of want to watch that movie tonight now. So
Hey, maybe we could you know how Disney you can share and watch it together. Maybe we can do
Yes.
that. That'd be such a
we
special
could do that.
moment.
You know what
Over
we
some
should do?
BRT too.
You know what we should do? An Instagram live, or we could do a YouTube live watching Moneyball. I don't know how many people
Hold
will
on.
join in.
Oh, we can't show Moneyball because that's
No,
copyright.
no.
We
We
just
don't
have to show our
have to.
faces.
It'll be a recap of just us reacting to Moneyball. Like I said, I don't know how
the
many
whole
people.
full length.
Yeah, the full length. Oh, you always go the full length, Michael. Just going short length and half length. Just the tip counts. But
I see what you're trying to do there, and we're gonna move on from it.
I already said we're expliciting this episode. So if you've made it this far in, we're 37 minutes in. We've had 3 pours. I love me some Makers. I'd rather go for one of the limited releases than just the regular Makers, but regular Makers is still good as well. Great stuff. Thank you for the samples, Michael. Thank you to Maker's Mark, even though we didn't get them from them. We bought this with our own hard-earned dollars, our doll hairs. BEP, Maker's Mark BRT-01, and Maker's Mark BRT-02. I'm taking BRT-2 each and every day. I'll take BEP too, but if I saw BRT-1, I'd be like, all right, you're okay. I like you, but you can sit on the bench.
Speaking of hard-earned dollars, if you want to spend your hard-earned dollars, we will sell you guys a hat.
We won't buy you a hat.
shirt.
We will sell you a hat.
We will sell you
see
a
Michael's
hat.
hat. You can only see that on YouTube. I've got the shirts that we have for sale. Hopefully soon we'll have some glassware or something along those lines. We've got stickers
That
for sale,
glassware would be
$2. What's that?
That glassware would be sick.
Yeah, we got to get. Hopefully we get a sponsorship. Hopefully we get a sponsorship here soon, and someone will help pay for our glassware. We do know a couple of attorneys out there, so if you have attorney needs, just kidding. There's no free ads, so we can't tell anybody that Ben or Joe would represent them. But we are Barrels and Barrels, a bourbon and baseball podcast. We've had some bourbon here today. Thank you for joining. If you've made it so far through 37 minutes of bourbon talk here on the podcast, we thank you. Head on over to our Facebook page. That is at Barrels and Barrels. We're on Instagram as well, Barrels and Barrels, and then Twitter, Barrels and Barrels. We are Barrels and Barrels, a bourbon and baseball podcast with high proof and high heat, talking bourbon and baseball. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Amazon, Google, and iHeartRadio podcasts. Please rate us, review us, just like we rated and reviewed these bourbons and whiskeys. We always give our 100% honesty. We're not bought by anybody. We give our thoughts, and if you've listened to previous podcasts, you know that because some of the bourbon that has been sent to us for free, Michael has pooped all over. So... we give our honest opinions and honest reviews. So thank you for listening. And Michael, do you have any thoughts, friends? Michael, do you have any thoughts, reactions, anything, comments for our friends, families, and viewers?
Yes, you've been cut from the team. Get out of here. And let's go.